Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. One. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. The way in which one may understand Srimati Radharani, even a little bit, is through the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and he's also in the Acharya Lila, coming to teach devotees the same kind of devotional service, because he's practicing it himself, that is performed by Srimati Radharani. And Ramya Kachirupasana Vraja Vidu Vargena Vakalpita. The Chaitanya Manjusha says that the highest method of worshiping Krishna is that which is conceived by the gopis. And we learn from the Sri Upadeshamrita that out of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the topmost. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited in the last 12 years of his life in Jagannath Puri the same kind of madness that Srimati Radharani exhibits in Vrindavan. After Krishna leaves Vrindavan and goes to Mathura and Dwarka, every day, 24 hours a day, the gopis are crying and pining for Krishna in separation. And when Sri Uddhava goes back to Vrindavan to deliver a message, ostensibly to deliver a message, actually Krishna is sending him there to see for himself the topmost devotion of the residents of Vraja. He comes in contact with the gopis and with Srimati Radharani to read the message. They're attracted to him because they see that he looks just like Krishna. And when they come to hear that he has a message from Krishna, they all gather around him. He reads the message, and then each one of the gopis is in a certain kind of ecstasy, but Srimati Radharani is specifically mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the kinds of speech that she manifests in separation from Krishna. And she begins speaking to a bumblebee who comes, and then she says derogatory words to the bumblebee and says, "You're an unreliable servant of an unreliable master. I know what you want. You're just like Krishna. You go to a flower, when the nectar is done, you go somewhere else. You just leave just like Krishna did." And then when the bee goes away, she begins to lament. "Oh, why did I say that? Now the bee is going to go and tell Krishna." And she begins to lament again. And Uddhava sees the madness of in pure love for Krishna that Srimati Radharani is exhibiting. And in a similar way, Kaviraj Goswami records in the second chapter of the Madhya Lila, called the ecstatic manifestations of Lord Krishna, of Lord Chaitanya, the ways in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tasted that same Mahabhava that Srimati Radharani tastes. And just a few verses. Sometimes in Madhya Lila 2:10, sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the small parks of the city for Vrindavan. Actually, I have to read before that because it's so sweet, and we can relate because of being in Jagannath Puri. During his last 12 years, this is number 3, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always manifested all the symptoms of ecstasy and separation from Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's state of mind day and night was practically identical to Radharani's state of mind when Uddhava came to Vrindavan to see the gopis. Number 5. 125, Madhya 2:5. The Lord constantly exhibited a state of mind reflecting the madness of separation. All his activities were based on forgetfulness, and his talks were always based on madness. Blood flowed from all the pores of his body, and all his teeth were loosened. At one moment his whole body became slender, and in another moment his whole body became fat. The small room beyond the corridor is called the Gambhira. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to stay in that room, but he did not sleep for a moment. All night he used to grind his mouth and head on the wall, and his face sustained injuries all over. Although the 3 doors of the house were always closed, the Lord would nonetheless go out and sometimes would be found at the Jagannath temple before the gate known as Sinhadwara, and sometimes the Lord would fall flat into the sea. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also run very fast across the sand dunes, mistaking them for Govardhana. As he ran, he would wail and cry loudly. Purport, because of the winds of the sea, sometimes the sand would form dunes. Such sand dunes are called Chatakaparvata. Instead of seeing these sand dunes simply as hills of sand, the Lord would take them to be Govardhan Hill. Sometimes he would run toward those dunes at high speed, crying very loudly, expressing the state of mind exhibited by Radharani. Thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and his pastimes. His state of mind brought him the atmosphere of Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill, and thus he enjoyed the transcendental bliss of separation and meeting. Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the small parks of the city for Vrindavan. Sometimes he would go there, dance and chant, and sometimes fall unconscious in spiritual ecstasy. The extraordinary transformations of the body due to transcendental feelings would never have been possible for anyone but the Lord, in whose body all transformations were manifested. Purport, the ecstatic transformations of the body described in such exalted literatures as the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu are practically not seen in this material world. However, these symptoms were perfectly present in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These symptoms are indicative of Mahabhava, or the highest ecstasy. Sometimes sahajas artificially imitate these symptoms, but experienced devotees reject such imitations immediately. The author admits herein that these symptoms are not to be found anywhere but in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The joints of his hand and legs would sometimes become separated by 8 inches, and they remained connected only by the skin. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's hands, legs, and head would all enter within his body, just like the withdrawn limbs of a tortoise. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to manifest wonderful ecstatic symptoms. His mind appeared vacant, and there were only hopelessness and disappointment in his words. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to express his mind in this way: "Where is the Lord of my life who is playing his flute? What shall I do now? Where should I go to find the son of Maharaj Nanda? To whom should I speak? Who can understand my disappointment? Without the son of Nanda Maharaj, my heart is broken." In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always expressed bewilderment and lamented in separation from Krishna. At such times, he used to recite the shlokas from Ramananda Roy's drama, known as Jagannath Bala Nataka. Self-help gurus in the material world talk about how to become free from anxiety and become peaceful and so forth. But actually, the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were not interested in becoming peaceful. In fact, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatamrita when there's a debate between the personified Vedas and the personified Shrutis and Smritis, that the Bhagavat comes forward, personified Bhagavat, and explains, and Sanatana Goswami elaborates how the Vaishnavas, the Gaudiyas, are not interested in shanti, shanti, shanti. They abhor that idea of just peace, peace, everything peace. But there's a clamor that goes on constantly in Sri Vrindavan because there's a constant state of ecstasy in the bodies of the residents of Vraja headed by Srimati Radharani. And this Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed in his last 12 years that he's constantly in that state of spiritual anxiety for Krishna. Text 18, Srimati Radharani used to lament, our Krishna does not realize that we have suffered from injuries inflicted in the course of loving affairs. We are actually misused by love because love does not know where to strike and where not to strike. Even Cupid does not know of our very much weakened condition. What should I tell anyone? No one can understand another's difficulties. Our life is actually not under our control. For youth will remain for 2 or 3 days and soon be finished. In this condition, O Creator, what will be our destination? Srimati Radharani spoke thus, in distress due to separation from Krishna. Oh, what shall I say of my distress? After I met Krishna, my loving propensities sprouted, but upon separating from him, I sustained a great shock, which is now continuing like the sufferings of a disease. The only physician for this disease is Krishna himself, but he is not taking care of this sprouting plant of devotional service. What can I say about the behavior of Krishna? Outwardly, he is a very attractive young lover, but at heart, he is a great cheat, very expert in killing others' wives. Srimati Radharani continued lamenting about the consequences of loving Krishna. My dear friend, I do not understand the regulative principles given by the Creator. I loved Krishna for happiness, but the result was just the opposite. I am now in an ocean of distress. It must be that now I am going to die, for my vital force no longer remains. That is my state of mind. By nature, loving affairs are very crooked. They are not entered with sufficient knowledge, nor do they consider whether a place is suitable or not, nor do they look forward to the results. But by the ropes of his good qualities, Krishna, who is so unkind, has bound my neck and hands, and I am unable to get relief. In my loving affairs, there is a person named Madan. His qualities are thus. Personally, he possesses no gross body, yet he is very expert in giving pains to others. He has 5 arrows, and fixing them on his bow, he shoots them into the bodies of innocent women. Thus these women become invalids. It would be better that he took my life without hesitation, but he does not do so. He simply gives me pain. In the scriptures it is said that one person can never know the unhappiness in the mind of another. Therefore, what can I say of my dear friends, the Lita and the others? Nor can they understand the unhappiness within me. They simply try to console me, repeatedly saying, Dear friend, be patient. I say, my dear friends, you are asking me to be patient, saying that Krishna is an ocean of mercy, and that sometime in the future he will accept me. However, I must say that this will not console me. A living entity's life is very flickering. It is like water on the leaf of a lotus flower. Who will live long enough to expect Krishna's mercy? A human being does not live more than 100 years. You should also consider that the youthfulness of a woman, which is the only attraction for Krishna, remains only for a few days. So the poetry is unsurpassed. It goes on and on. And then Mahaprabhu addresses Ramananda Roy at 41. Again, he addressed Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda, speaking despondently, "Alas, my friends, you can now know the certainty within my mind, and after knowing my heart, you should judge whether I am correct or not. You can speak of this properly." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then began to chant another verse. "Love of Godhead devoid of cheating propensities is not possible within this material world. If there is such a love, there cannot be separation, for if there is separation, how can one live?" Pure love for Krishna, just like gold from the Jambu River, does not exist in human society. If it existed, there could not be separation. If separation were there, one could not live. Thus speaking, the son of Srimati Sachimata recited another wonderful verse, and Sri Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar heard this verse with rapt attention. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I feel shameful to disclose the activities of my heart. Nonetheless, I shall be done with all formalities and speak from the heart. Please hear." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "My dear friends, I have not the slightest tinge of love of Godhead within my heart. When you see me crying in separation, I am just falsely exhibiting a demonstration of my great fortune. Indeed, not seeing the beautiful face of Krishna playing his flute, I continue to live my life like an insect without purpose." So these are some of the qualities that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned to Sanatana Goswami that are inherent in love of Godhead, and that is that one considers oneself to not have love of God. As one advances, there's a proportionate amount of dainya, or utter humility, through which one considers oneself completely unqualified, even though one's becoming more and more qualified. So one of the important lessons of advancement in devotional service given to us by Srimati Radharani herself is that of not feeling entitled. Entitlement is a dangerous disease. The Venerable Jamuna Devi Dasi, who recently left this world, made that one of her main campaigns in life, saying that devotees should not develop a sense of entitlement, and that is that I've reached a certain stature and therefore I deserve a certain kind of respect, or of course etiquette must be there, and one must extend oneself and maintain the etiquette in all ways, but one should not demand such respect for oneself, thinking that I'm qualified in some way. And so as Narada Muni makes his rounds to find the various, to find the topmost devotee, the devotee who's received the most mercy from Krishna, he goes from one Vaishnava to the next, and each one of them shows this kind of dainya, or utter humility, and said, "It's not me," and then tells why he or she is completely unqualified, and that actually they haven't received any mercy from Krishna, and points to another Vaishnava. And even as Narada comes to the topmost devotees in Vraj and greets them and begins to worship them, they, the gopis of Vrindavan and Srimati Radharani, consider themselves completely unworthy and unentitled to be considered the recipients of Krishna's ultimate mercy. And therefore, if one covets a certain position or idea that I'm best, we're best, something like that, then this is not the mood of Vrindavan, it's not the mood of Srimati Radharani. Cultivating utter humility is the foundational aspect of advancement in devotional service. So we pray on this day of Radhashtami that we may perform devotional service which is free of the spirit of entitlement, and that we may develop utter humility, or dainya, as so that we can go deeper and deeper into the process of pure devotional service, and so that we can be empowered to spread Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement all over the world. Srimati Radharani ki jai, Shri Radhashtami ki jai, Shri Radhamanan Mohanji ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Lakshmi Nrsimhadev ki jai, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru Parampara ki jai, Shri Vaishnav Sangha ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol, Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Vanchakalpadurvascha kripasindhabevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnavi ki jai. The Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, hey, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman, Natari Marman.